Hi everyone. Good evening and good morning and good afternoon from wherever part of world you are. And I would like to welcome you to my talk, which is about disclosing vulnerabilities to the organization responsibly. So without wasting further time, let's get into this. Before security, I used to develop mobile applications and web applications. So I had a good experience with the DevOps side of the IT. Mobile applications and web applications had really fascinated me towards security. And currently, I am working as a head of cybersecurity for an organization. And in my free time, I do security researching. Obviously, um, uh, with the passage of time, you try to find more and more stuff to learn, and I'm on constantly on the hook to learn more about mobile application security, or be it Android application or iOS application, and there are a lot of stuff to learn about. But I haven't explored the IoT industry, and I look forward to learn more about IoT security and ARM as well. So why responsible disclosure, or why we actually talking about responsible disclosure in our talk? So basically, let's take an example. Let's think for a moment that your neighborhood, or there's a house in your neighborhood that had actually left your their front door or their back door open. So what would be your response to that? Obviously, you will ask them to close the door, or you will call them to close the door. In a similar case, while we talk about information security and cybersecurity, when we find something uh, that has a unintended response, uh, we find it something potentially harmful, or very harmful for the organization or for the community. We try to report that to the organization to make the internet a safe place, and to secure the organization or their application or their infrastructure um, in a more better and efficient way. So, in my whole experience, while disclosing the vulnerabilities, I had the opportunity to work few of the organization. One of them was a semi-government organization, and the other one was a corporate organization. I cannot use their name actually, but the semi-government organization was something that was known in the public, and I would further discuss this in my talk. The corporate organization, obviously, they were a subscription based. They had a subscription based application, and that was huge. And the online restaurant that used to serve desserts, coffee, or whatever you name them. So uh, that was a very great experience. Didn't end in a good terms, but that was indeed a great experience. So I'll discuss this in my talk further too. So let's start with the government application. Uh, in this government applications, not actually that was not actually a single application. There were multiple applications, like multiple applications. They had a hotel management application. They had a, a criminal record background check application. They had a citizen identifying application, which used to work on different protocols. Let's say it used to take your CNIC. We call it CNIC, but that can be your national identification number, or whatever number you can name it. So the hotel management system, or the hotel management application, used to check their customer, like doing the basic KYC for the customer. If he is a criminal, or he or she is a criminal, and they are requesting for a room in the hotel, so they had to do the background through their mobile application. So when we are talking about mobile applications specifically, and when it comes to government, we see a lot of stuff in our daily lives. Like in my experience, I saw there was no code obfuscation, and the application was clearly open. Like just download the application, uh, just run few tools, and you will get the source code, and you can build up your own application. You can replicate the application, replace the particular API keys or whatever keys you want to replace, and it's sail it further ahead, because that applications were never available on the Google Play Store, and that applications were used by the excuse me, that applications were actually used by the organization that were dealing with the customers, dealing with the citizens, and that had actually, I mean, that organization had actually used to report those stats to the government organization. So my point again is hard-code APIs. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, but there were hard-coded API keys within the application code, no SSL pinning, clear stuff, exposure of sensitive information, self-explanatory. And then there was a new thing I had actually found, and which was API was API credentials were hard coded in the URL. Yeah, that was a new thing. So for the evidence and for just to clear everything off here, you can see in the screenshot and on the left side, you can see there's uh, a username and a password that has been uh, that is visible in the application, um, in the application URL, and it is actually taking the username and password within the URL, and it is also disclosing some confidential information. Let's say here it is disclosing about the IP address of the data center. And when while we are using this application API, it used to actually return the customers, or you can say the citizens confidential information. So let's say if somebody knew my national information number, or you can say national identification number, and they had to actually query for that information, they could have actually get everything starting from my grandparents' name till my children. So that was pretty huge. So with that, I would like to share a few tips for the researchers. You see, this was something new for me. So when I reverse engineered the application, I was shocked to see that they were actually using API keys within the URL parameter. So that was something very new to me, and I just wanted to share that for the record. And then there were few post requests that had given an unintended response. Let's say when I used to pass parameters or payloads that meant to be for SQL injection, uh, they were actually looking a legit target for SQL injection. So I just didn't go forward with that, because that was something out of, I considered as an out of scope. And then um, there's something I would actually emphasize everyone, like when you are reverse engineering the application, specifically the Android application, make sure you match every step you are performing in the application and the application you have reverse engineered for. So let's say you started off with the splash screen, and then there's a screen that says your username and password is required. In most of the cases, the application doesn't look for the mobile device that is been either rooted or non-rooted device, or is it or has SSL pinning enabled or disabled, or certificates that are installed in the mobile device, are there trusted keys or they are different than that. So while make sure that every step you perform while reverse engineering the APKs are matched with the activities that you are actually performing. And yeah, enumerate as well. So that helps a lot, like obviously. So when a group of guys, like I was included that group as well, when we reported this vulnerability to the government organization, the response was against our expectation. So let's say mostly the news media outlets had actually got this news pretty quickly, and they started to publish their stuff over the internet. Like that went really viral, and with that, when the chairman or the CEO of the organization came to know about this, he not actually tried to blackmail us to just take down the content, but also he launched an investigation for allegedly hacking into their government servers. So what happened next? We, all of the members who were actually working on this application, who were actually going forward with responsible disclosure. So some of them got a call from the law enforcement agencies. They asked them to come in and for the interrogation for allegedly hacking into their servers. And there was a lot of mental stress. Like everybody was shocked that we were actually helping the government organization secure their infrastructure, secure their applications, because like leaking out, like these information was being leaked out on the Facebook groups for around $2 to $3. So you can Google that up as well. And then the legal battle starts, where they had to register a case against these guys, and um, they had to show up in the court and all of that stuff. So that was pretty hectic for us. And at the end of the day, the case was dismissed, and the allegation that were being put up to that was being put up to all of members were dismissed as well. And we learned a great lesson from this, and which is never mess with the government applications, be it an Android application, be it whatever application, because they take they take this very differently. They take it as something hurting their ego. So we all decided not to do any stuff that pertains to the government entity. So we just went sideways. So that was pretty harsh experience, but again, there is a good experience as well. There was this corporate application which I earlier discussed, had great number of premium customers. So they had a very great reputation. Like they had 1.5 million downloads on their Android application and iOS application. They had premium services which include alerts, customized alerts, or you can say um, some resources they were offering for the premium customers, and the resources that were not available for the free users. And they had a very great reputation on the both app stores. So that was a very good application in terms of user experience and the services they were offering. So I had a chat with the organization, and I wanted to disclose the vulnerabilities in my talk, but unfortunately they didn't allow me to disclose the vulnerabilities. So I won't be actually disclosing these vulnerabilities in my talk, and I would actually discuss about the vulnerabilities that were actually discovered in the application without naming them, or without actually disclosing the whole information um, to the audience. But again, a limited one, just to make sure that I stand by the rules and there's not something coming back to me. So there's a tip for researchers. I would just put it out for everyone. Whenever we are fuzzing the API keys, or whenever we are looking into the API keys of Google, make sure that you cross verify them while looking into the application. Let's say the login mechanism of the application, look into the login mechanism, how the login mechanism is actually working, how it is interacting with the server. Let's say in this case they were using the identity and access management of the Google, and they I mean they had different API keys for the front end and a different API key for the identity access management. So always look out of the box, always think out of the box actually, and make sure that you try to fuzz every parameter that is being posted to the server, that has been requested to the server, so you get a good understanding of the intended and unintended response. And try to create two different accounts, so in case if you are looking for IDOR based vulnerabilities, try to replace the tokens, replace the keys inside the tokens. Maybe in this case, even though uh, in this case we were actually trying to figure out how the tokens were generated. So whenever you are looking into the tokens, look how they are generated. So that gives you a great idea of how to reverse engineer the tokens and just replace the relevant information within the token, regenerate the token, and request the data. So that would actually help you in achieving the goal in uh, attacking the IDOR based vulnerabilities. And yeah, as usual, enumerate as much as you can. So I disclosed these vulnerabilities to the organization, and I'm glad they were very helpful. They were very serious about the security, the application security. So I posted this on their, uh, you can say forum or you can say chat forum, and their response was pretty quick. Their response was pretty quick, and then they opened the ticket for me just to make sure that uh, all the details are shared through a private medium rather than on a public medium, and to make sure that confidentiality is maintained. So when I gave them all the information about the vulnerabilities that I had actually found in the application and so on and so on, they were very I'm glad they were very generous to reward me for the vulnerabilities I have actually found in the application. And then I got an email from their head of platform engineer, inviting to actually a bug bounty platform, and just accepting the token of appreciation from the organization. And that's it. That's how my experience was. So that was a very great experience in disclosing vulnerabilities. Like, I was not expecting any kind of appreciation from the organization, because I didn't intend to, just I didn't intend to, ask for the monetary benefit or something in a similar terms, rather than just to make sure they secure the applications and just recognize that. But that recognition was very, very unexpected. So there was this online restaurant that used to take orders from the customer, in terms of online takeaways, dine-ins, and you name it. And they had an on Android application as well. So what actually happened was, they were using base 64 authentication in their API requests. So again, it was not a SSL. There was no SSL pinning enabled in the application, and if somebody who was in the same network could have performed MITM based attacks, they would have actually steal the customer information that is interacting with the server, and so on. Some of the business logic flaw I found in the application, and that were pretty serious. And so this critical control that was missing, where you were actually purchasing something and it was not actually like it used to redirect you to a page, but rather redirecting you to a page, it didn't actually authorize you to perform that action. And in that case, somebody could have actually ordered a lot of stuff without paying the restaurant. And yeah, it used to expose sensitive information about the customer and about the application as well. So when I disclose these vulnerabilities to the organization, I got an invitation from the CTO of the organization, and they wanted to meet me in person so that they can upskill or not sorry excuse me, not upskill, upgrade their cybersecurity posture, and help them identify the gaps and fill out the gaps as well. So uh, um, uh, I went in there. I spoke to the CTO of the company, and I'm really thankful to him. He was being so open about the vulnerabilities, like discussing the vulnerabilities, and coming up with the resolution and so on, so on. So big thumbs up to this organization as well. So in all of my this journey, I remember a few things while I am disclosing vulnerabilities to organization, and which is TARP. So TARP stands for don't be, you can understand it quite clearly, act responsibly, because sometimes the organization takes a lot of time in fixing the vulnerabilities. So let's say there was an organization I was earlier talking about, where they had actually critical vulnerabilities in their Android application, and I reported the vulnerabilities in October 2019, and they had actually fixed their vulnerabilities in January 2020. So we have to be realistic about the approach rather than being aggressive about something and asking them again and again, like if the vulnerabilities are fixed, what happened with the vulnerabilities? What happened if they are not fixed in time? Just be responsible. uh, I mean, whatever details you have, put them out and share as much as details as possible, because at the end of the day, they are developers as well. They have to have that knowledge to understand the vulnerability quite clearly, and to make sure to fix it in a quickest way. And then again, respect the privacy. Just don't put it out on the internet. And uh, let's say if you find a vulnerability and you ask them to fix that vulnerability, and if they don't give you a response, you just wait for a certain time. Like there's a 90 days program for the Google vulnerability disclosure program has a 90 days. If you report something to the Google and they don't fix it in 90 days, in a very exception case, uh, I mean, they fix these vulnerabilities within 90 days, but when they cannot fix these vulnerabilities in 90 days, they try to extend that um, the period. So again, you should be very careful with the information you are putting out. Let's say if you find an IDOR based vulnerability, don't test it on other accounts. Don't test it on something you are not authorized to do that. Again, if you intend to secure the organization, just make sure you follow the ethical ways and ethical um, model of doing things. And yes, play within the boundaries. uh, if you find a remote code execution vulnerability on a server, let's say on an application, just don't try to dump their database, because again, that's something off the limits, and that can put you in a very critical position. So there are some vulnerability disclosure programs that had been initiated by a lot of bug bounty organizations. Let's say Yes We Hack has a very great vulnerability disclosure program finder. So what you actually do is you install that plugin into your browser, And whenever you are browsing those pages, let's say you are browsing those applications, you just it just gives you an alert or a notification that this organization has a responsible disclosure program, and if you find something in this organization, you can report them through this email. Or if they are um, onboarded by the ESV hack platform, you would find them there and you can submit those vulnerabilities directly on the platform. So I find it pretty helpful in terms of responsibly disclosing the vulnerabilities to organization. And sometimes uh, it's hell of a job, like finding the right person to submit the vulnerabilities. But again, at the end of the day, uh, it's all about being patient. And then Bugcrowd and HackerOne have their own vulnerability disclosure programs, and by that you can actually disclose the vulnerabilities to the organization that are onboarded by the relevant platforms. But then again, there is something we should actually look for, which is when we are disclosing these vulnerabilities, make sure you disclose these vulnerabilities to the right person, and to the a person who can understand it quite clearly. Let's say if there's a sales guy, all right, and you are disclosing these vulnerabilities to a sales guy, how would he actually understand the vulnerabilities? Like, he's a sales guy. Apologies, I'm not trying to belittle someone, but there's a difference of aspect when it comes to the technical side. So look for the engineering teams, look for the person who is involved in the development, look for someone who has the capability to look into the technical side of the application, talk to them, and provide them details as much as you can, so later on that can help them to identify the I mean identify the vulnerability or the bug in the application. And yeah, there's a great platform in the name of disclose.io. You can actually follow that platform, and you can just use that platform for disclosure program. With that, I would like to thank you for listening to my talk. If you have any questions, you can please ask me those questions, and I have given out my Twitter handler and email address. Um, I'll be my DMs are always open, and you can always drop me an email. Thank you so much.